So that leads me to ask the next question, which I'm curious about. And you've mentioned it in passing as we've been chatting, and that is the five primal, I suppose, steps or parts of
Five primal
storytelling.
elements of a short story.
Yeah, let's just do a little dive into that, and then let's sum it up. Love to hear that.
So it comes down to basically being an extended ABT, the five primal elements of a short story. And the idea here is when you're presenting to somebody, you want to go in and you want to own the room, their attention immediately in like under 15 seconds. So you begin your presentation with an ABT because you're going to set the stage. Here's the problem we're solving for. You're landing at a singular narrative that you're going to be talking about, and here's what success might look like. And then what happens, Jeff, is when someone does that and you go, oh, that's interesting, Park. Do you have an example of it? Whether they articulate it or not, that's what the brain's saying. It's like, oh yeah, show it to me. So then you launch into a little short story using these five primal elements that makes your business point for you. And this story can be told in under a minute is the idea. So within the first 90 seconds of that sales presentation, that meeting with your boss, whatever, you've used two proven frameworks to hack into the limbic brain. So it starts with a timestamp. When did this true story about a real person happen? And when you do that, what you're doing is triggering the temporal mechanism within our limbic brain that says, oh, something must have happened in this time because Park is starting with a timestamp. The more specific, the better. Last Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. My Depression era father. People can immediately picture where that is, or at that time and place. Anywhere that you can start to trigger that limbic brain that says, oh, I better pay attention to learn what I would do in case whatever happened to Park happens to me and I can have the survival of the being. Then you follow up with a location stamp. Remember I said North Dakota for my father. So, you can picture North Dakota Depression era, not a pretty picture, but all I'm trying to do now is light up the theater of the mind. So you can throw in one or two, the plains of North Dakota, the cold, freezing winters of North Dakota, Fargo, the little city of Fargo, North Dakota, made famous in that movie. All I'm doing now is to light up the theater of the mind so that I can get you picturing it and relating to it, because then you're going to relate that picture to something else in your own life. And then you introduce a central character, one person, not two people, not a team, not a brand, not an organization. It's always about one individual, because our brain only cares about one individual. It doesn't care about the masses. It can't process that. In this case, the story was about me, so I was the central character, but I did introduce you to my dad and Park Tarbell. They are, cast members in this, telling the story about how I got my name. And then you've got me at the center of the story people can relate to, and I'm building trust, hopefully. People go, oh, he's pretty cool. He's kind of like me. I've got a story like that. Then you get into the action and the surprise. Well, the action is, my dad's first job out of college, goes to work for this Norwegian gentleman by the name of Park Tarbell. And the surprise for me was upon my birth, he had passed away. So you've got this little sort of kismet of life going on. And when I asked my dad, when my dad was close to death, why did you name me, after him? Because he got things done easily and happily. And that's the way my dad went through life. And that's what I aspire to do. So that makes my business point for me. Hard worker, get things done easily and happily as I help teach people about storytelling. So that's the short little. Now I went on with that explanation a little bit longer than I need to, but I could set up a presentation if I am just trying to build some confidence in my people that I'm selling to or whatever. And I might start with something about, boy, what's in a name, right? We all have our names that we try to live to, but often we don't even know what the origin is of it. And it's so true with our brand story too. In fact, let me tell you about my personal brand story. It actually began in the Depression era in the cold, wintry plains of North Dakota. It's where my father was born and raised. You can see where I'm going with this, right?
It's great. Yeah.
Then absolutely. I can dial that in, and within 90 seconds, I've used an ABT on you. I've used the 5 primal elements of a short story, and I've made my business point through a story. Nobody can argue with the true story well done.